There we go. And we're live. Hello, everybody. And it takes a little bit of time for them to get their messages that we
Little
are live.
delay.
Yeah, there's a bit of a delay. So welcome, everybody, to the show. I'm here today with Reverend Rick Cempie. And as you well know, he's been on several times with me. And he has a wonderful website at Cempie's Corner on Facebook if you're interested in reaching out to him and joining his community there. And we're going to get him all set up here on YouTube eventually. So
that's right.
Yeah. So
it helps to have some guidance.
It does. Somebody has been asking me, others have been asking me, can I do a manual? Not O come Emmanuel, but
right.
A manual so that we can and things change so very much that at least it wouldn't be very big right now, but as time went on. So of course I'm always here to help people out as much as they need it. And
you've been a great help for me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. It's my pleasure, my dear. Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Thank you.
So hello to Craig and to Leah Salva, Synchrony, Nancy, and Teacher Barbara. I hope you're all having a beautiful day. So I was on with my friend Deb at 11 to 12 today, and we were talking about a lot of stuff that was going on over the weekend. But you and I are going to talk a little bit about the holidays coming up that we're going to be.
That's right.
Yeah, because we want to lighten the load just a little bit. Thank you, Barb. You're homesick today? Oh, I'm sorry. I hope you feel better, my dear. I saw that you, Barb lives in Florida, and it looks like they came through and did some cleanup in her neighborhood for her. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Barb, I don't know if you've caught Cempie's Corner on Facebook, but prior to Helene hitting landfall, I put out a huge request for people to help out with light workers and weather witches.
Yeah. I think it helped. I do, because we were working. It was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I actually shared it with like 2.16 million people, different groups that I'm a part of.
Okay.
And, we were keeping updates to encourage people, keep it rolling.
Yeah.
And it was scheduled to come in as a 5. I think it landed in Tampa as a 3 and it was quickly demoted to a 2.
Yeah.
And then in no time flat, just tropical storm at a 1.
I know. So my friend Barbara,
considered a raging success.
It was. And this lady here, Eliza Bassett, lives in Maui, and they're having some rains there, which they always could use. But she was telling us how we wanted to, I guess, storms work in counterclockwise fashion, and we were trying to turn the dial to make it, the other way.
Oh, okay.
So that was really awesome. So there are a lot of weather wizards out there, and Barbara lives right near Tampa, and her husband had stayed home while she left to go to be with her parents. But fortunately for her, I mean, they had their problems, but it could have been so much worse. Yes. Absolutely.
Oh
yeah. Yep. And Craig Dixon says, thanks for reading Clara for him. Apparently last time you were on someone's channel doing that. So
okay, great.
Yeah. Hi, Dr. Ann down in New Zealand. And so she's saying hello. And Sin, you aren't the only one. I'm ready for a big shift in energy. And I think we all are at this point. So thank you so very much for that. Yeah. Hi, Charlie.
Absolutely.
It's nice to see you again, too. So, yes, Craig was sharing he had a spiritual cleansing last week. So there you go. Yeah. It's the other way around.
Good time of year for it.
Asking the storm to dissipate without causing any harm. There was somebody else that did the reverse thing. But yes, they apparently there's a warning in Maui that she saw many years ago when she first got to the island that says, whenever there's a storm coming, ask the storm to dissipate. So there you go. Yeah.
Sending love was another thought that people could use. That way, whatever would be needed would
Uh-huh.
be received and
Absolutely.
processed.
So Nancy's asking, because you're an astrologer as well.
Yes,
I mean, you have a lot of hats that you wear.
I
She's
do.
heard of other astrologers predicting some sort of a attack or problem in Arizona. Have you heard anything about this?
I have not heard that one yet,
Okay.
but I really focus a lot on the personal and private work
Right.
of individuals.
Yeah.
So unless I have someone I'm dealing with in Arizona, it's not
Sure.
likely
Might
to.
not show up. Yeah.
Right,
Might not
right.
show up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, hopefully not. And let's see if we can also dissipate that idea.
Yeah, we all need to go ahead and focus
Yeah.
more on peace.
Peace, right? Peace and
Yeah.
loving. It's a warm island, east of Maui, and Hawaiian Island usually gets the brunt of the incoming storms. Okay, thank you. Sorry, it's hard to remember things from other shows or other times, and I appreciate you clarifying that for me, Eliza. Thank you so much. So today we thought we might talk about Halloween and the actual beautiful idea of the Day of the Dead, which is a Mexican, I believe. It's not totally Hispanic, is it? It's mostly Mexican.
Oh, it is definitely where you're coming from, Mesoamerican in origin.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yes, it is not a Spanish thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
comes from the indigenous people.
Come from the indigenous folks. Okay. So hi, Sherry. It's good to see you. So
hey, Sherry.
The idea of, quote, celebrating the dead.
Yes.
And it, when it kind of very interestingly, some people might think it's morbid or there's other things, but for me, it seems beautiful. It seems like, because I had read somewhere that we only are remembered, let's say, for maybe 2 generations tops. After we're gone, usually people forget all about us.
Sure.
They tend to. So I love this one, because this one is really celebrating all of the ancestors and the way things are done.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the closer you connect with them in general, the more deeply you are blessed by it and experience ongoing experiences. So it is a treasure to experience.
Sure.
As an active part of your faith journey. As you connect with spirit.
Right. Yep. And if it's a religious journey, that's one thing. If it's just a spiritual, there's really a difference between spiritual and religious, but either way, whatever way you celebrate,
right.
It's beautiful. In New England, I grew up in New England. So in New England, we sort of, every Memorial Day, you went down to the cemetery. That's the way you spent. Because in New England, it's like the beginning of summer, not quite yet, but the 31st of May brings it in, and you clear out all the dead stuff on the gravestone or around the gravestone, and you plant new plants and you do all that. So that was like a thing that my family did. It wasn't the Day of the Dead, but in a way, it was our own little ceremony for the ancestors. And when I was a kid, it was so boring. But now as an adult, I can say, it was being honoring, very honoring.
It is
for those. Yeah. So so what else do you want to say about that, Rick? I'd love to know what your experience is. I'm sure you have a
ball.
Oh, good. Well, you do
those things.
And
there are so many elements of connecting with our ancestors and the dead that I feel should be a vital part of our life.
Right. Yep.
Because I do not think that it is therapeutic or helpful to feel this need to disconnect with people after they die because they're dead and they're gone. You need to let them rest. That's more our own trying to cope with our
Right. Our own
bereavement.
demise. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there are much more healthy ways
Agree.
to
Yes.
process.
Yeah.
And I try to help people respect their own need to have an ongoing rapport with their spirit people and
Mm-hmm.
family and
Mm-hmm.
loved ones. I think
Right.
it's very, very important. I'm sure that Sherry's experiences down in Louisiana
Right.
would
Same
certainly,
type of thing. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
be exposed to more people who feel that's a need.
Right. Right.
And I know myself, I try to keep track and document everybody who passes during the year. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, I've gotten a little overwhelmed at times with how
Especially in
many.
2020. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
my father passed on Black Friday of 21,
Okay.
and on Black Friday of 22, I had the 13th death that had hit.
Oh
So it
my
was like
Lord.
one for every moon. Yeah.
Right. Right.
It was a lot to process. So that year I was still, I hadn't gotten the whole way up to 13, but I had so many by the time
Right.
the 31st of October came. Was not able to do all of my practice, which is to go ahead and offer up prayer, but also I go through a process called memorialization.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it is a practice that I learned about from a trifold pamphlet out of a funeral home helping adults explain death to children.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Very simple. It was just leading people to um, be intentional
Mm-hmm.
in recognizing how is your life impacted by knowing this person. What did you share?
Uh-huh.
What did you learn?
Mm-hmm.
If there were things about you that you were equally on the same footing with certain ideas, or there were things that you, like if you enjoyed bowling together,
Uh-huh.
you
Right.
know, you could
Yeah.
you could keep them alive when you go bowling.
Bring
Remember
them
their.
along. They can
Yeah,
take the score.
right.
Yes.
They can
Yes.
they can be helping you with your splits.
That's right. That's right.
Whatever.
Yeah. 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 I love
the
that.
The idea was basically, that's a simplistic form, but there were other things that I thought, what has really changed within me.
Right.
The one that I love the most is one of them anyway is my grandfather. He had a way of walking gently into a space, sauntering in, and if he didn't like what he was hearing with the way his wife and daughters would be gossiping, he would
Uh-huh.
just let out a real heavy sigh, turn around, and walk
And then
out. And
no
that,
sense in arguing, right?
well, it conveyed like,
Yeah.
when you're ready to stop,
Right.
you get my presence.
Correct. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very
And
good. And they knew it. They must have known it.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah. Okay.
recognized.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
it's recognizable.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
a
fact.
lot of stress I like to go ahead and process by taking a cleansing breath while I'm there, turn around and
Mhm.
step away.
Right. Yeah. Boy, that's beautiful. I like the way that funerals now are more life celebrations than they are
Hmm.
morose. In other words, you're enjoying telling stories. There's pictures. There's
Yes,
testimonials. It's almost like a retirement party for the dearly departed, I guess. It's
it
what.
is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I would suggest anybody that feels led, if you're in the middle of a funeral service and you find something you need to say,
Yep.
interrupt if
Yeah.
you feel a need.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know,
Yes. Yeah.
there were 2 songs played on a loop with the videos that the funeral home had put together with all the photos of my sister when she passed.
Uh-huh.
It was playing in the background in the other room that was adjacent to where we were having a small service with the priest,
Mm-hmm.
and that was playing in the background in the other room. And suddenly, while he was speaking, the volume came up where um oh, another piece of my heart was being played.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wanted to
Janis
make sure that
Jan-
you knew that one. Okay.
Janis Joplin,
Janis
right?
Joplin. Yes. Yes.
And
Yep.
he, the priest from the front of the area said something to the effect, and he didn't know her.
Uh-huh.
He he said, "Please turn that down." And I stood up and turned to make sure that my voice was heard by anybody who heard him.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Leave that on where it is, because my sister would have wanted that to be the background,
Right. Good for
and
you.
he'll be able to speak just fine and be heard." And then
Uh-huh.
I turned and sat down and looked at him and gave him a nod that he could proceed.
Good for you. Yeah.
And
A lot of people
I,
aren't that courageous, but that's all. I would have done that too. I would have. I would have
yeah,
said that's because you know your sister so well. You
right,
knew. Right.
right,
Right.
right,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
That's amazing. That's amazing. With when I gave the for my mother's funeral, I sang a song. And for my
uh-huh,
father's funeral, I was the one that was in charge. I was the quote minister,
uh-huh,
and and
or celebrant,
a
as
celebrant. That's right.
yeah.
And we would tell. I mean, I was cracking my father's jokes is what I did a lot of.
Oh, how beautiful.
And I would say my father used to say, and then I'd say the joke or whatever. There aren't a lot of people that like speaking in front of groups, but the few
Oh,
that
it's
did stand
scarier
up,
than death for
yeah,
some.
oh yeah, they'd rather be in the casket than to be standing up and talking. Yeah, that's for
Mm-hmm.
sure. But yeah. Oh, Sherry, you did that for your husband. You had a wake of sorts and then no church service graveside, and pastor asked all there for memories. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful idea. I really do. Whether or not you are buried or you're cremated, one or the other, it doesn't really matter. It's whatever
Right.
the person wants. And I love the fact that we have come at least that far to a lot of people in society, um, that we might not have done, let's say, when we were a lot
Yeah.
younger. Yeah.
And sometimes a memorial service gives more time for people
Yes.
to go ahead and settle into themselves and figure
Correct.
out what they would share. And
Yep.
we
Yep.
we did that for my father, and it wasn't until like January of 22 when we had a memorial, and
Hmm.
I invited people to step up
Hmm.
and
Right.
share memories that
Yeah.
were special
Yeah.
to them. It
That's
was very
awesome.
helpful.
It is helpful. So for me, over the period of time that I've been teaching at the college level, I have a lot of young people, and a lot of young people lose grandparents when they're in college. I mean, some of them are
Hmm.
excuses that I don't believe, because sometimes they forgot. They told me they lost two grandmothers already, and now they got a third one. But that's a kid for you. But I uh, I would always include a book about either mortality. There's a Tuesdays with Maury book, or
Hmm.
Mortality by Chris Hitchens. And we always delve directly into death. And so people could feel comfortable talking about it, because we aren't comfortable usually. And of course, the younger you are, the less comfortable. Or, like you said, some people would rather talk about it than get up and publicly speak. But I
Right.
felt like it's time. It's time. There has been um, a rising up, I guess, of people, and a lot more people are cremated now. A lot more people don't want to go the burial route. And, all of these things have shifted, I would say, within the past maybe 30 years. Would you say that that's probably true?
There's been a lot of shifts with
Uh-huh.
the culture.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we cannot deny the impact of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Right.
That's a
Absolutely.
huge
Mm-hmm.
boon to the
Right.
whole
It
experience.
is. It is. Yeah.
And um, that has also facilitated the medical community to have some working tools and understanding for hospice workers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um,
The living will was instituted, as well as directive not for heroic measures, where people
right,
sign that thing too.
advanced
Yeah.
directives
Mm-hmm.
have been bringing up conversations that are very conscious
Mm-hmm.
so that families can really pull things together and be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, with a lot of families struggling to figure out who's going to take care of these uh, elders as
Mm-hmm.
the family
Yeah.
is so busy,
Right.
you have a lot of disparity of the balance of
Mm-hmm.
who gets directly involved with the care, and
Mm-hmm.
frequently people that are at a distance who can't even step in to visit.
Right.
And it creates a lot of turmoil between the different levels of commitment.
Right.
And that really creates a
Sure.
lot of need for people to simply come together.
That's very, very true. Eliza says her parents were traditionally the age of grandparents. Her mother was almost 41 when she was born, and her grandparents were gone by the time she was 10. And her mother spoke easily of death. I had the same thing. My mother was 36. My father was 39. My grandparents were already dead in the 40s. I came in the 50s, and we talked about, she had, like, my mother had not 8 brothers and sisters, so there was always some of those as well that were, and so there was a lot of death. And unless you had a healthy understanding of it,
Sure.
it's very, and I'm not saying that it's easier, but I think it has been a
No.
great easier for me to talk about and try to come to terms with than it would if I said nothing.
Well,
So,
and maybe it is easier in some
okay.
ways because we may struggle, but we're still engaging.
True. That's true.
We're not closing off, and
Uh-huh.
that's where it's easier.
Sure. Sure.
Because only when you give voice to something, you must name your pain in
Mm-hmm.
order to release it.
That's true. Very
If you
true.
do not know what hurts you,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, what have you lost? And that's the value of
Sure.
memorializing.
Sure.
But with the memorialization, you get to celebrate that. So,
True.
like,
Yeah.
my grandmother was absolutely devastated and shock when my sister passed, and
Well.
they passed within 10 weeks of one another. So the following year, on our first Mother's Day, I told my mother and different people that would come together, let's get the favorite purchased cookies of each of
Oh,
these women,
I love that.
come
Yeah.
together
Uh-huh.
and share stories for Mother's Day. to
Mm-hmm.
to buy them purchased, you would have all these memories of,
Sure.
oh, this person always had this cookie
Yeah.
around, you
Uh-huh.
know,
Yeah, with a cup of
because
tea or something. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I get it.
it
Yeah.
was always around.
Uh-huh.
And it brings to light all the memories of kitchen table visits,
Uh-huh.
the
Comfort. Comfort.
yeah, the
Yes.
hearth of the
Yes.
kitchen,
Oh, yeah.
which is so connected to
Definitely.
heart
Yeah.
and hearth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So I
That's
really
beautiful. Yeah.
think that was a wonderful way to
Uh-huh.
bring healing into a better space.
A better space. When I was growing up at church on Mother's Day, um, and I don't know if this is at other churches, they do the same thing, but I belong to a congregational church back
Okay.
east. And it was, it was less, what, none of the fire and brimstone. I was glad that I didn't have that. But Mother's Day, everybody who had a living mother got a red carnation. And everybody that's mother had passed would get a white carnation.
Okay.
And so everybody's wearing them. They bought them for every mother in the place. And you would, sort of, it was just a memory. And like I said, I can remember it to this day that everybody was like, and I remember looking at my mother lost her mother when she was 5. So she had many, many Mother's Day. That's a long time. Yeah.
Sure.
And, see her with a white flower, my dad with a white flower, knowing that their mom wasn't, had been gone for quite a long time. But it was a really nice ritual, I guess. And I think we do like to have ritual. I think ritual is
important. Yeah. I think too, this is a great time to mention it, but I feel that as culture changed in the early 20th century to move away from Victorian homes, where you could have multi-generational families, where the grandparents were possibly in one of the larger rooms in the home. You watched people age. You didn't have them sequestered into a nursing home in those days. You watched living until you die occur, not dying. Then on top of it, they would have the funeral in the parlor. Children were not excluded.
Correct.
They were a part of the process in such an importantly powerful way.
Definitely.
I feel it was incredibly powerful and important.
It was. It definitely was. Yeah.
Then afterwards, we saw hospitals limiting the opportunity for visitation of children.
Correct.
And then you saw changes in shuffling them away from funerals. That children couldn't
go. Right.
Couldn't go.
Yep.
And then you had children being sequestered away in cry rooms in churches. By the time the 60s came along, they were building these weird things. And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah.
It was not healthy.
No, my first funeral that I went to, it was not an open casket, but it was a classmate of mine in the 8th grade who actually had a gun shot to his head. And he had gone to visit relatives in Louisiana and he was gone. But the whole class was there. And while it was impactful for all of us, knowing we'd never see this guy anymore, it wasn't until I really went to a funeral and I was afraid. My parents didn't make me afraid, but I was fearful of going to see a real person dead in a casket.
That you knew.
I knew. Yes, absolutely. Right. But my daughter had the opportunity to choose whether she wanted to go when her grandmother died, and she was 9, and she wanted to do that. But of course, my mother didn't die of some horrible, she looked the same. In other words, she didn't have, but and I remember always saying, I don't want a bunch of people coming to stare at me when I'm dead. So it's not my thing. Not at all. Yeah. But the
looky-loos.
The looky-loos, that's right. I want to bring this back a little bit to this question, Rick, because you work with so many different people and you've gone through so much of this experience as a reverend.
Also as a nursing assistant.
And a nursing, okay. I didn't know you did that too. Okay.
Yeah, people tended to gravitate to my spirit, and I dealt with a lot of the families of the dying.
Okay.
So
that's a beautiful calling. Anybody that is with a person when they pass, it's a gift. It's a total gift for them and for you. But my question is sort of one we'd have to just probably think on that may not be proven. But do you think there are people that sort of just check out because they don't want to live in the next world that's coming to them on the earth. For instance, you said you lost 13 people.
Right.
Anybody in that group of people that you thought maybe they were like, I'm tired of this place?
I'm thinking that
Okay.
I have a little bit of a twist on that.
Okay, good. Do tell.
I feel like their purpose was, okay, I got to get moving so that I can come back and fix this mess from a different perspective.
From a different perspective. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's very good. Yeah.
I feel like, oh, it's time to go because I got to get back and be a part of the change.
Correct. Okay. Well, I say this mostly because I lost both my brothers, but the first one I lost, he was 64, and he was actually really ill, and I made him go to the VA. He wouldn't go because the VA didn't treat people really well, and
Right.
they saved his life, and he lived another 5 years, so he would have died before he was even 60. And but I sensed that he was tired of the struggle. Let's put it that way.
And that is the source of a lot of suicides.
I know it is, but his was not. Yeah, he only
Right.
had one kidney, but yeah, I agree with you though. Yeah, a lot of people who are depressed. Yeah, unfortunately.
Depression over the course of a history of chronic health issues is very much a large component of the overall health of the individual.
Right. Yeah. That's very true. No, you're very true. You're very right. Yeah.
I don't want to go without reminding people of something that is a wonderful source. If anybody enjoys a good read, Dr. Raymond Moody Jr.
Oh yeah.
And Reverend Diane Archangel co-wrote a book, Life After Loss.
Okay.
A hospice. She was a hospice chaplain and the daughter of a minister, and of course, many of us know Dr. Moody from his famous work in
with Daniel Brinkley,
lifelong study of the survival of consciousness,
correct,
and coining the phrase NDE, near-death experience. It is very practical. It gives a lot of lessons, practical suggestions, and things that you can do in lieu of saying and doing stupid things when people die. Because there's a lot of stupid things.
There are a lot of stupid things. You're right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people just don't know what to say, and that's okay.
To which I say nothing.
Say nothing. Well, my friend's husband came over to me and said, "Oh, you'll be okay." It's like, I know, but right now I'm not, but I just knew that was him. That was his personality. He wanted to get away from it. He didn't want to talk about it anymore.
Well, that was very gracious of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's sadly frequent that oftentimes the bereaved are put in the space of trying to comfort the mourner.
Comfort the other. Correct.
And it's like, excuse me.
Yeah.
You folks should do this amongst yourselves. I'm busy at the moment.
Right. Yeah. I did realize that about him and others who don't feel like, for me, I will pour out my heart. I remember sending a long note to a friend of mine who lost her husband, and I didn't really know him, but he was a Facebook person, and we would say, hi, how are you? And that kind of stuff. And I just said, what a wonderful guy he was and how lucky you were to have him. And I mean all of it, but she didn't really know how to respond to it. She didn't have to, but I thought I felt like maybe I made her uncomfortable, and I didn't want to do that either. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable.
Well, it is very tricky to not step into a difficult spot with the bereaved, because no one knows what to expect with someone they know when they lose someone, because it can always be a different experience with every death.
It definitely is.
Every death hits differently. It also changes us. we may grow, we may grow through difficult things.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I read somewhere, and it made sense to me, that every loss we have, every death we have, they sort of compound upon each other. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
after the first one, you remember that one, it comes back. And I find that
Mm-hmm.
especially with animals, I know that may be weird to some people, but when I have these companion animals that are so close to me for whatever it is, 10 years, 20 years, no, that's too long, 10 years, 12 years. Every time I lose one of those little babies, I remember all the other babies I've lost, And I mean, I've
Right.
lost a lot of people, and I'm not saying that I don't mourn for people either, but I think a lot of people really have a tough time also with animals,
Well,
loss of
there are
animals.
people who can compartmentalize,
True.
and they'll put the death of a person on the shelf and
Uh-huh.
not face it.
Right.
And these, what appears to be these tough old birds, when their pet passes,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
a
They're a
mess
mess. Yes, that's very
because
true.
it touches a space in the soul that is
Mm-hmm.
connected to the divine.
True. That's
Animal Animals are a messenger from spirit,
absolutely. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I still am never surprised when my cat from 20 plus years ago will show up and momentarily step into another cat and look at me and
Right.
give me a hello and then
Sure.
leave, so that
Uh-huh.
you can see this channeling going on.
Right, right.
Very
Yeah.
hilarious when that
It
happens.
is hilarious. It is.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting too, because when I was growing up, my mother would say, people make over their pets so much. I don't know why they do that. They're not people and all this. And I was a young person because I was only 33 when she passed. And so I really didn't feel like I had her as an adult yet, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
speak. And some of the things that she thought and felt, I did not feel, for instance, that I just, yeah. And, but at the same time, she had a lot of loss with her mother dying at 5, coming downstairs from hearing her scream all night and seeing her dead mother laid out, like you said, in a Victorian home,
Right.
and then not having a mother all those years, and then losing a stepmother, losing this one, people moving out, all of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. She went through so many losses that I don't really know how. I can see why she was a mess. My mom was really quite a mess,
Sure.
emotionally. So, I certainly forgive her for what she knew. And she was born in 1920. And, so that's a whole different mindset. Everything
Oh
about it
yeah.
was very, very different. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a
Um,
lot of things that happen to people who were born at that era,
that's very true.
culturally, historically, that they
Right.
face hardship.
Uh-huh. Yes, they're laid out in the parlor. That's what they used to call
Mm-hmm.
it too. And we used to call our couch a divan. So
Okay. I always
uh
heard the divan.
the divan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something different.
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny because today wasn't what we were talking about today that made me drive me to do it. But I thought to myself, I've got to write a will. I've got to write my will.
Mm.
I mean, I should have done it 10 years ago, probably, but I haven't done it yet. And I'm trying to get all my ducks in a row. So my
Yeah.
kids don't have the problem. My kids will talk about it. They're very good because we always talked about death. But my
Mm-hmm.
husband's kids, if he says he's sick, don't talk about it. Don't talk about dying. Don't talk about what you want. Don't talk about any of that. And I just find it very, very odd that I said, what, they have to know that this is something that's going to happen. But
Right.
yeah,
And when we talk about the ancestors, because the holiday we're approaching,
correct. Hmm.
I also think about what will be the celebration of life when I'm gone.
Right.
And I let people that are around me know, in the event that something happens unexpectedly, these specific objects are in these places,
Uh-huh.
and they go to certain people.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that is very important to me,
Sure.
you know.
Sure. Yes. Just like your directive for what you want done with your vessel, and just generally speaking, I remember that I wanted when I was younger, I wanted to be buried in my karate gi, and
Okay.
and I wanted them to play "Funeral for a Friend" from Elton John. And
Okay.
I know, and maybe I'd change it a little bit, but I want people to smile. That's the way I look at it. I
Mhm.
want people to smile. There shouldn't be any animosity, and I want this and you want that and all that kind of thing. So
So you
yeah.
mentioned something earlier, Tuesdays with Maury.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about that since
Sure,
you brought it up.
absolutely. Yeah.
I have a friend that was not a teacher ever.
Mm-hmm.
When in the 70s, as Chiron was discovered, we both came to study astrology in 77,
Okay.
and we're 13 years apart and didn't know one another at the time, of course. And casually, through Pittsburgh's metaphysical community, made contact. So we were just Facebook friends,
Mm-hmm.
which amounted to being uh, a contact that you had access to, but
Correct.
we were both busy doing our astrological work, and
Yeah.
we
Just like
came
you and I have been busy all these years. And
exactly
yes,
right.
exactly. Yes.
And it didn't mean that the
Right.
time not connected, we didn't appreciate one another.
Right. Right. Yep.
And a couple years ago, we started. I reached out to him, and I thought, you know, there aren't that many people with the headspace for what we know, and
Yeah.
I really love how it brings out the amazing things within each of us that
Hmm.
we wouldn't have thought of had we not been together.
That's right. Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
kind of cross pollinating each other's brain,
I love that.
you know. And
Yes.
for quite a while, we would meet weekly, and
Hmm.
to me, it just raises the idea of cherishing the time we have,
Absolutely. No matter how
which
long
is
that might
something
be.
that I see out of
Yeah.
Tuesdays with Maury.
Right.
And
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
treasure the connection that we created as
Uh-huh.
we spent weekly chats for an hour.
Right.
And now I am always on his podcast for Astrology Unplugged.
Uh-huh.
And uh, his name is also Rick.
Okay.
He has a mentee who's computer savvy. She's also an up and coming astrologer.
Uh-huh.
And it's like Claudia and Rick D and Rick C, you know?
Yes.
And we just
That's
have a
awesome.
ball. And as he's going through the aging process and such, we've had a joy to go
Yeah.
ahead and share
Yeah.
love and light with
Yes.
the community he's created.
That's beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. I do. I really, truly love it. And when I was sharing that book in my classes, and it was if you haven't read Tuesdays with Maury, I put it in the chat. It's by Mitch Albom. Mitch was a student of Professor Maury at
Hmm.
Brandeis University back in probably the 90s sometime. And he knew that he was dying of Lou Gehrig's or what is the other name for that?
ALS?
ALS, thank you. And so what he did was he every Tuesday would fly into Boston, I think, from where I think he lived in Chicago, and
Mm.
he would ask him questions about life and about what he thought about this and because he loved the teacher. And he was right there when he passed and went through all these different things. But my students would they would say, "Oh my God, this is amazing." First, it was like, I don't want to read about somebody that's going to die.
Right, right.
Eventually they were like, this really was helpful. And,
Sure.
it really did. It gives a different perspective. it's not so scary, even though they don't want to think about their own demise, but you're going to lose people that are in your family or whatever it is, that people don't last forever. Hi, Terry. Yes, Maury wanted to go dancing. That's right. That's right. Hi, Gina. It's nice
I
to see
have
you.
a
Yeah.
wonderful friendship with my college philosophy professor who taught mysticism and psychic research.
Ooh,
And
beautiful. Yeah.
after many years, I reconnected with him, and we would connect in the area of K dialogues, which are a tradition started through the work of Jiddu Krishnamurti. If you're not familiar with him,
yeah.
for those of you who are listening, he was the long-awaited world teacher that the Theosophists were expecting, and he went to spend time with them. They adopted him and his brother because he wouldn't go without his brother. And as he got into his mid-20s, they're preparing to lay the keys to the kingdom and the fortune at his feet to be the guru for the world. And he was willing to speak with people and have discussions, but he didn't agree with the paradigm of that model in the idea because he was an anti-guru.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. If I could describe it that way, you caught it. He believed in talking together and coming to a space of sharpening your tool of your mind.
Correct. Empower yourself. Don't come to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And he basically turned and said, thanks, no thanks.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I can't blame him because I think a lot of people have become very egotistical if they are elevated, so to speak, as a guru event for anybody. Nobody really wants that.
Right.
If they really ask themselves, I'm just a human being. I may have a little bit of wisdom. I'd love to share it with you. That kind of thing. Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I'm always moving people towards try to do your best to connect with your ancestors and your own guides.
Right.
Because they are not only going to guide you best, but the strength of the connection you can create with that in one life is going to come easier in another life.
Right. That's right. That's true. That's true. One of the things worth mentioning about the Day of the Dead is I believe a lot of them dress up as skeletons, I think. They go to the
feature highly.
Yes, it does. And isn't there a lot of food? Like it's all they make all kind. All right, that's what I thought it was.
And food, just like I was sharing about the cookies.
About the cookies
is a wonderful way to share the memories. It's the favorite dishes. It's the dishes that this little abuelita perfected, and everybody that would have her tamales would feel, it's like she's right here. Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. Right. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and it's important to remember they are right here with us.
Right, they are. They're just a breath away, is really what you can say. But look what Terry wrote. Guru, aka Guru. That's beautiful.
Oh, yes. Beautiful.
Thanks, Terry. I love that.
Beautiful, Terry.
Yeah, great an acronym.
Fantastic.
Yes, perfect. Yes, that's wonderful. Yeah. So I know that there's a couple of foods my kids think of their grandmother, and I'm not a big Thanksgiving person because I don't like to eat a lot of like a bulk meal, but we always have to have green bean casserole, which just absolutely became important, I guess, in the 60s, because that's when mom started making it. But, you got to have that, and you got to have this certain kind of a, for my husband, it's banana cream pudding and beans, because he grew up in Kentucky. So everybody's got their own thing that they feel attached to in that way. But it
Sure.
brings those memories back to us, or
It
hot
does.
apple pie, whatever it might be.
Well,
Yeah.
smell is a powerful
Oh, it
tool for
is.
memory,
Yes,
and it's so connected to taste.
absolutely.
Along with
Yep.
having enough moisture to taste your food and the
Hmm.
like.
Yep. And that's true, Marilla. People still bring food to grieving family. You're absolutely right. Number
Hmm.
one, I think there's two reasons. I always thought it was that they're not in the right mind or, place to have to make something to eat. They need something
Oh,
that
yes,
is
that's correct.
easy for them. But I also think it really is a way of nourishing the soul as much
Uh-huh.
as the body. So thank you. I love that.
And
Yeah.
there's such a shift in the energy of a bereaved person
Yes.
just to make the decision. Oh my God, I don't know how to bring myself to the kitchen and even look to see what's
Right.
available.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
put something together, to
Uh-huh.
go to make it.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to scrub a
I just won't
potato.
have anything. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
going to eat anything. Yeah.
I don't feel like peeling carrots.
Right.
Uh, it all has so much dread to it. But you
Uh-huh.
know what? That casserole, all I got to do is cut a portion and heat it.
And heat it in the microwave. Yeah. If
Right.
or yeah, whatever. Yeah. That's very true.
I
That's
just
really true.
suggest that people go ahead and try to coordinate so you don't inundate with so much food.
Well, that's
They
true.
have no room.
That's right. Yeah. You got to have a little bit of regular food and a little bit of dessert, because dessert is really important as
Sure.
well.
Oh my, yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah.
And I think
Oh, go
too,
ahead.
it's important to mention the bereaved, especially in the first week, need a lot of water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
is very dehydrating because you're not eating properly, you're not drinking properly.
Yeah.
That slows down your kidney function, and you're crying more than you care to
That's very
acknowledge.
true.
And
Yeah.
you find your skin dries.
Hmm.
You got to drink and moisturize.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So
And
yes,
eating
and
dessert first, Anja,
dessert is
I'm
always the
right
best
there with
idea.
you. My
So yes,
great grandfather always said
always said that
that's the
life is
way he
short,
does
eat
it.
dessert first. Yeah, there you go.
That was his way.
So yeah, just doing the simple things makes sense, Dr. Ann, that you might be paralyzed from doing it. Mary says she loves growing food, harvesting, and cooking it up. It's important to all of us, even the plants in the oceans eat, and I love that one as well. And Eliza, I like what you said. There can be soul loss when someone passes. I think there's a hole in the soul maybe that needs the mending. It's almost as though
Well, our chakras do get
they
leakages.
do. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can
Okay.
see that through chakra photos.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's very wow. So I love this. The moment of thanking the giver is a respite from the grief. That's true. You're
Mm.
appreciating something. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
And appreciation is life affirming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
It
very
is life
important to
affirming.
engage in something
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
is life affirming.
That's very true. That's very true.
Sometimes I think that the time spent with our animals when in the middle of bereavement can
Yeah.
be
Sure.
possibly the most powerful help we have.
Sure. Because they're so unconditional. They'll know you're going through a hard time and they'll just be there for you. Yeah.
Well, and you
That's
have to take care of them. So you're
true.
investing life-giving energy to those
That's very true. Yeah. That's very
partners in
true.
our lives.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I'll never forget this. When my dad passed, we walked outside to get in the car to go to the cemetery. And out it was a very beautiful, clear late October sky. In fact, I believe it was probably today. I think he died around this time of the year. And I walked outside and there was a double rainbow in the sky.
Mm.
I've never, ever seen one, and I haven't seen one since.
Oh,
And
I've had the pleasure
oh,
a
have
couple
you?
times. Yeah,
Aren't they amazing? They're
they are.
amazing. So
They're easy to miss one of the rainbows, though.
I suppose so.
One
This
is
was
always a
very
little
stark.
paler. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This was very stark, and it really was amazing. So we get in the car, and I'm already amazed, and we get up to the funeral, up to the cemetery, and my mother had passed first, and Dad 4 years later. And we get up there, and on the grave, right beside the grave, right growing in the grave, was a blooming rose in this time of the year in New England, where it was like probably already had a hard frost. And
right.
I was like, Mom saying,
That's
okay.
miraculous.
It is. The whole thing to me was, at the time,
Yeah.
I thought, this is something you couldn't make up usually.
No.
So, yeah, but they really do try to let you know they're there. They
Right.
do. You just got to see the messages.
It makes me think of Our Lady of Guadalupe
Oh,
because
okay.
of it originates in Mesoamerica, in Mexico, where Castilian roses were brought to bloom, and at the site of the apparition, and it is a beautiful story to look into for anybody who's interested.
Sure.
And it connects with so many of the vibrant colors. Our Lady of Guadalupe is the patron saint of indigenous people.
Okay.
And Mexican and Puerto Rican decor is full of bold colors that are absolutely so alive.
Yeah. That's fabulous.
You mentioned the skulls with Day of the Dead, and I will say a lot of people are surprised what's going on with crystal skulls. And a lot of people connect with those as they seek to get guidance. It's the intersection of crystal communication, ancestral, and higher beings all coming together. So I would definitely suggest, anybody who's interested, look into it. It's not scary. It's
right.
It's a total gateway.
Sure.
As you look into the face of the skull, it takes you to the space of the other side.
Yeah.
And it's not a frightening thing. It really isn't.
Wow. That's beautiful. So Mary says she's had dogs and cats go off when dying. I always thought they did that so I would not grieve in front of them. I always brought them home and felt bad that I did not leave them. Mary, I totally get it. It's the same way when animals have babies. Sometimes they'll go under the house or they'll go somewhere else to give birth to the babies. But
isn't it funny? Birth and death being the same idea of a transition.
And they are. That's right. Yes, thank you. That is an important, because it is when we
travel
die,
between the worlds.
Right, you're being birthed into another dimension, a world. Right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, I guess the lesson I really wanted to talk about today, I think we did a talk about it, was don't be afraid to talk about it. I mean, and move yourself into having those conversations, because a lot of times people will pass and they haven't prepared anything, and they leave people behind and they don't even know where to start. So I'm going to get a notebook. I'm going to have all my accounts in it and all that other stuff, so that they're going to make it. It's going to make it easier. And then I'm going to tell them, this is what I want done, and this is how I want it done. And you're never too young or never too old to do it. So,
right. And the one thing I would say as a parting piece of advice, remember that the way you treat someone's death can be one of the most important acts of love that you have for that person. So if you find someone who's not doing well with a bereavement, you can support that person by giving them words and talking to them and sharing in spaces that are healthy for yourself, and giving them the space to go ahead and talk if you are up for that. And please, by all means, there are many people with mental health care coverage.
Sure.
Do suggest that they consider getting bereavement counseling if needed, and
Mm-hmm.
going to groups,
Mm-hmm.
because every person lost is unique, but
Yes,
the idea of losing someone is universal.
that's right. That's right. Beautiful Morella. She says yes. She lost her husband Reno. He's been, I don't know how many years he's been gone, but yes, reach out to them. She says it's so important. It
Yeah.
really, really is. People are around for the funeral, and then they sort of disappear. They don't know
Oh,
how sometimes how to
it's a
handle it.
second abandonment.
Yes, yes, it can
You
be.
were left by the departed, and now you're left by all the people who are
Right.
treating you like, oh, I don't know what to say, I'm staying away.
I'm staying away. But the same thing when there's a disease or there's a
Sure.
something like that happens as well. And that's not the time to abandon these people. So
No.
yeah, 2 years, Maria. Yeah.
Oh, and
So
frequently talking about 2 years. A
uh-huh.
lot of people find that the second year is more difficult than the first.
It's possible. I
The
would
first is
imagine.
its own
Yeah.
issue.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the year of firsts.
Right.
The first of every holiday that is no longer including
Right.
someone.
Right. Yeah.
And the second feels with so many dynamics that I shudder to even begin to discuss any of them, because they
Mm-hmm.
should probably be discussed in a space that is much longer, that
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
able to
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and help shed light on some of the worms that'll come out of that can.
Right. Right. And Morella agrees with you. So she's lived
Mm-hmm.
it. So she
Yeah.
knows. Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks everybody for sharing some of the things that you've shared. It wasn't meant to be a morbid or morose discussion, but yeah, I really believe it's the time to do it. And the Day of the Dead and Halloween actually brings up that kind of thing. And so honor yourself and honor those among you, and see if you can talk about the things you can while you still can. Which reminds me, talk about wonderful things, memories, things you did together,
Yes.
stories. Yeah, all those things are important.
Find the great photos and pull them out to share.
Right.
Send them to people that would love to have them.
Mm-hmm.
Get
Mm-hmm.
some, I have one particular photo of my abuelita that I have fixed the damaged corner from age through pixels, one pixel at a time,
I
and
understand. Yeah.
printed it, and I put a colorful peacock feather in it with the frame, and I don't have it now. I don't know where it is, so I'll
Oh,
print it and do it again,
do it again.
because
Right.
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
I've saved
Yeah.
it, and
Uh-huh.
sharing it and looking at the photos of your ancestors in your comfortable reading space that you
Right.
have
Uh-huh.
time to decompress or meditate is a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful practice to go ahead and
Yeah.
start. That if you can develop that now, you will have a closer connection with your ancestors
Sure.
all through the year.
Uh-huh. That's right. That's right. Wow. Thank you, Reverend Rick. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us
Thank
today.
you, everyone who was able to make it. We
Yeah.
appreciate all your
We do.
connections.
We appreciate you. Take care.
Yeah.
Much love, everybody. Bye-bye.
Much love and many blessings.
That's right. Bye-bye.